we go. Okay. And I will stop the recording just so everyone knows if we get into any kind of personal sharing. We just wanted the recording to be for people who aren't here tonight, who are curious about what is Melody going to do? What is good grief? So just so everyone knows. Thanks, Melody.
Thank you. Thank you. So, what is good grief? How can anything that is so bad and so painful be good? So, we're going to delve into that some more tonight. Here's my credentials. A lot of initials. Um, it's because I love learning and I love coaching. And so I'm always in some kind of a class. I most recently finished the grief and end of life certification, which honestly, I looked into it a few years ago and I wasn't quite ready. And I'm so glad that I waited because it came around at exactly the right time, as things often do. And it has helped me grow so much and to also do a lot of my own healing. So I am very excited about grief and end of life. So I'm happy to talk to anybody in more detail. I am a professional coach. Like I say, lots of certifications, which we don't need to get into a whole lot. It includes medical coaching. I have worked a lot with people who are affected by medical conditions or are caregivers. And so I think that's what drew me even more into grief work is there is a lot of grief around losing our abilities medically or watching a loved one decline. And so I recognized that pretty early on in my life, handling a lot of workers' comp claims. So it's kind of feels like it's all coming full circle. I have had a personal ongoing relationship with chronic stress. And so really understand how quick things can change just like that. And so it's been kind of nice taking all of these pieces of things, putting them together, and it helps me relate even more to people. Okay, that's enough about me. So we are in a grief pandemic. I think I think you would agree with me. With war and politics and climate change and homelessness, violence, economics, everywhere we look, we're surrounded by these heavy realities. And grief takes a toll on us. My focus personally and professionally, I should add, is grounded in resilience. I bounced back, sometimes crawled back from several big losses and transitions. And along the way, I've learned a thing or two. I've also worked with hundreds of people over the years and learned that one's choices and actions make all the difference in their recovery. That said, when we're in such an environment where there's so many big losses constantly playing in the background, it's harder to bounce back. And we have to be more conscious of it. So we have all of these things going on with the world and big losses. And then we have all of these other everyday losses that we suffer, our personal losses. These are the common ones. Most of us, when we talk about grief, we talk about death, but there's a whole host of other losses. I'm just curious how many of these you've personally experienced. So take a look at the list and jot that down on your paper. We'll talk about it later. I'm assuming everybody's had at least one loss. So if you haven't, we'll definitely have some discussion because we want to know the magic about that.
I need a few more minutes because I've had several.
Okay, that's okay. Yeah, just jot it down. And the abilities, the loss of abilities could be anything, cognitive, physical, anything. Estrangement, I define that, or I work with the definition of that can be either a totally severed relationship or one that is not fulfilling. You might still see people, but it's not a good relationship. Need some more time? Okay. All right. So when we combine these large losses and our personal losses, the cumulative effect can be devastating if we don't know how to deal with it. So to understand good grief, we need to take a closer look at grief and mourning. I used to use the words grief and mourning interchangeably. I thought they were the same thing, but they're very different. Grief is what we feel on the inside. That's where we feel it. Mourning is how we express what we're feeling. That may be crying or talking or rituals, visiting the grave. Each loss needs a grief reaction, and each loss needs to be mourned. If not, these things just get pushed down, and then they turn into a bigger problem, and they're harder to move forward with. So this is like grief, right? It's a roller coaster. It's crazy. It's unpredictable. It's up and down and sharp curves and twists that seem to never end. You may feel pretty good one day and that the worst is over, and then you're plunged headfirst into this mess of emotions. And it is a tangled mess. We all know that sadness is part of grief, but there's a whole variety of emotions that also come up, and they're all twisted together and they're hard to pull apart. We could literally spend hours just talking about the emotions of grief. I know this because we did it in our coaching classes on learning about end of life and grief coaching. There's so many, and being able to pull them apart and really explore them is part of the healing. Grief impacts everything, just every aspect of our life. So I'm going to share a few more slides and jot down some words that you have personally experienced. Okay? It can be from any loss, doesn't matter. Just jot down what you recognize that you've experienced, and then we'll talk about it. There's going to be about 5 slides, so I'm going to go a little bit slow, and I can't see everybody, so I'll just give it a couple minutes and then move on, okay? So if we need to go back, raise a hand or something. Okay. How many of these have you experienced when you were grieving? This is the unslide. You're unable to motivate yourself, concentrate. You're sleeping too much or too little. Uncontrollable, unpredictable bouts of crying. A few more things. You don't need me to read the slides. Yeah. So just jot down which ones. Write a word or two of the ones that you've experienced. Okay. How about these? Maybe you're afraid of being alone, or you're afraid of being with people. Maybe you're afraid to leave the house or afraid to stay in the house. Frustration when friends call too much or they don't call enough. People pushing you to socialize. Okay.
Sophia asked if you could just slow down just a little bit.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate you keeping track of the chat. I can't see, so thanks. Give me a thumbs up or give Nancy a thumbs up when you're ready.
Melody, when you get through these slides, Katrina or Sunny is asking if you could go back to the swirl.
Yes, we can,
Okay,
definitely.
thanks.
Okay, ready?
Ready?
And here's another one. These are common in grief. The urge to punish someone or something because you're in pain. And if Nancy, you can give me an okay when it looks like everybody's ready.
Got one thumbs up,
Okay.
two thumbs up, three thumbs up, four, five.
Good enough, probably,
I
huh?
think I think we're good. Yeah.
Very good. And then the physical. Sometimes we don't think about all of the physical problems and symptoms that come with pain. And these are all very, very, very common. Um, I worked with a woman once who I did a lot of ergonomics, and I worked with this woman. We had her workstation set up beautifully. She had no problems. Everything was resolved. And her mother died, and she was gone. And when she came back, she was in such pain, her wrist. And so we kept looking at the ergonomics again and again because she thought, something's happened. Took us a while to really kind of think about, well, it's the stress of the loss. So all of these things can happen. And another slide for physical. So maybe you've experienced all of these or a few of these. Maybe just make a note of a few that you have. And then we can talk about it as a group. Okay. So,
Can you go back to that swirly slide for Katrina?
yes, let's do that before we talk about it. The swirly side, the ball of emotions. At the
And
center is denial. Even when you're expecting it, there's that instant shock and denial.
yeah. And a good way is to either do a screenshot for yourself if you want to keep it, or take a picture of it with your phone. I see Jennifer's doing that. So that's a good way, or just a screenshot too.
Yeah. Every time I look at this, I see something different and how it morphs into something else.
I like it.
Mhm.
Okay, Katrina says good. Go back to that.
Okay. So now we can chat. We'll do some reflecting and sharing.
Okay, so
So
I'm
very,
gonna stop the recording so
okay.
people can feel comfortable.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see if this, and we have all of these different thoughts and feelings raining down on us constantly with grief. And it just beats us down. And when we have all of this, and then we're trying to deal with it, and then our culture has a huge impact on how we deal with grief.
Excuse me, Melody, are you showing slides?
Yes, it didn't work. Okay, well, let's see. I wondered what was happening because I couldn't see you. Thank you for Maybe I need to do the share slides, huh? Okay, so I'm a little nervous. The secret's out.
Oh, I've done it. It's okay. It's a Zoom thing. And you just have beautiful people like Sang who pick up on.
Yes, and thank you for seeing it. Now, are you
Hi,
seeing it?
Lisa.
Oh, no.
Not yet. Not yet.
How's that?
There we go.
Ooh, lovely.
Yes, because this is such a great slide. I'm so proud of my slide. Yeah, so we have all of these feelings and thoughts raining down on us and beating us down. And then we have our society, and depending on how we're treated, and that impacts how we heal. And unfortunately, it seems like everything is so taboo now. People aren't comfortable talking about it. They don't. They just ignore you sometimes. People you've known for a long time, neighbors, suddenly ignore you. Um, I think it's fascinating that we don't oftentimes use the words died or dead. Oh, they kicked the bucket or, whatever. But people are even uncomfortable saying those words, died and dead. More and more memorials and funerals aren't happening. I was saddened when I heard that oftentimes people aren't even picking up their remains, their ashes of their loved ones. They just leave them there to be disposed of. It made me really sad when I heard that. There's this mentality of, okay, move on, get back to work, and you just need to deal with it on your own time. I worked for a very, very compassionate coaching company a couple of years ago, and they were so wonderful and always very, very coach-like, let's just say that. And when COVID came through, they gave us extra time off on top of our sick leave, all of these things. And yet when my father died, there was no funeral leave. It was like, well, we don't have that, so you'll have to take leave without pay. And it just surprised me that it's like, how can you be so caring on this hand and then not recognize grief? But I'm finding that there are a lot of companies that do not give grief time. It's pretty much get back in there, teach the class, go to the meeting, raise the kids, take care of mom, go off to war. Whatever you need to do, just suck it up and move on. So if we can't share our thoughts and all of these feelings that are coming up and they keep getting pushed down and they're not expressed in healthy ways, eventually they're going to find a way out. And it could be in fits of anger, outbursts, could be depression, cancer, pain. A lot of things. I was fascinated in my years of working in workers' comp and injured workers, how often a severe injury then would trigger some PTSD from years ago. And so then we had all of these emotions that were coming up, and then trying to help the person cope with that unresolved grief, along with now the grief and uncertainty of an injury. And so it just complicated things even more. So it comes out one way or the other. So here we are with another sharing area, just about these couple of things. And what's your experience? And is it taboo? Is it ignored? Or do you still have a lot of, do you have a good area that you can talk about your loss or what's happened? What's it like?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Are you all in the corner when you see my screen? Are you all in the corner? Okay. Just checking. All right. Let's see. Here we are. So Let me find my place. Sorry about that. So what does good grief mean? I love Dr. Alan Wolfelt, who Dennis is very aware of. I read something he wrote recently. He didn't write it recently, I just read it. Society tends to believe that doing well in grief means being strong and in control. But the truth is that doing well with my grief actually requires vulnerability and honest encounters with all of my thoughts and feelings. When I embrace pain, I'm doing well with my grief. When I express what I really and truly think and feel, I'm doing well with my grief. That's what good grief means. Good grief means being with the emotions, like Sophia was talking about, even though they're uncomfortable. It means expressing all of the emotions, whatever they are, not just the sad ones. And the goal ultimately is to learn how to live in the midst of the pain that you're feeling. Love doesn't die, so why would we expect grief to? There is no getting over grief because it never ends. That was probably the most surprising thing for me. I just kept thinking, well, you get through it and eventually it's gone. But it's just part of you, right? I mean, it's just like love. The relationship with a loved one changes when they die. It's different, but the love is still there. So to grieve well, you must accept and integrate the grief into yourself. That's the definition of good grief. This is a sample of what we most commonly would think of as mourning, good mourning. Expressing it, right? Break that picture frame, crying, screaming, whatever it might be. Is this good grief? I don't know if you can see over let me move your people. Yeah. Is it good? Yeah. Because if good grief means being able to express yourself, all of the feelings, you can be happy, right? Putting the star on the tree or having a memorial, holding a candle, just spending time in nature, just being with your alone, family and friends. Yeah. And sometimes we hear this around the holidays with grief. I just want to leave town and hide and come back when the holidays are over. And if that works for you, then do it, or fly off to see friends or whatever you need. But it's okay. It's really okay to laugh and have fun. The grief group that meets at the Y, sometimes they're asked to be quiet because the laughter is so loud. And people are always like, what's going on in there? That cannot be a grief group because everybody should be crying and we have that. We cry. Sometimes there's tears. There's a lot of laughter. There's a lot of stories. There's a lot of sharing and good memories. So good grief is about expressing all of it. Feel what you're feeling, express it, and go on. Don't shut down those good emotions, and don't feel like I shouldn't feel this way. How you feel is just fine. Holidays can be especially hard. Do I do this or not do this? Do I send Christmas cards or not? Do we bake cookies? Grandma and I always did that together, and now she's not here. I don't think I can do that. You can choose whatever you want to do or not do. It doesn't matter. Don't do what you think you should do. Just do what you want to do. Find a grief support group or friends that you can actually talk to and be yourself and take down that mask. So learning to live with grief doesn't get easier. The roller coaster highs and lows aren't as extreme as they were. It does get a little easier as time goes by. There's a quote that says, time heals all wounds. And I think that's really inaccurate because it takes a lot of work and self-care. Our grief stays the same size, but we begin to grow around it. We learn how to carry it, and we can learn to laugh and be happy again. And sometimes we can even thrive, right? It can open up whole new beginnings for us. So that is my thoughts about good grief. And I hope that was helpful. I would like to know what you are taking away with this. And I'm also very conscious of the time because our group discussions have been so good. I don't want to run over. So I don't know, Nancy, do we want to circle back to this or let me put this
I
slide up about the group. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. And then I think it's always nice to, and we have, the right amount of people and we have 15 minutes. You can take the slide down, I'll stop the recording and we can just go around the room with what people are leaving with.
Yes, that would be lovely. Okay. So do you want me to take the slides down, you said?
Yeah, did
I'll
you want to
stop share.
read this little quote from Elizabeth?
Yes, I love it. The reality is that you will grieve forever. You will not get over the loss of a loved one. You will learn to live with it. You will heal and you will rebuild yourself around the loss you have suffered. You will be whole again, but you will never be the same, nor should you be the same, nor would you want to.
Thank you. I
Mhm.
absolutely love that
Yeah.
reminder. Right.